can address any challenge head-on and create lasting change for our residents. I'm so proud to work alongside Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, my colleague and partner in this work. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Okay. That's my chief, Connor McNutt. Thank you, City Councilwoman Emily Koski, and Koski is serious when she talks about that partnership. She was one of the first members of the City Council to invite me to one of her own town halls to present about the work that we are doing. She's been in my office, in my couch in DC so many times advocating for the needs of Minneapolis, and I've always really appreciated the fact that she was not willing to only engage me when I am at home, but has always made the trip out to come see me in DC and make sure that we knew what was happening in Minneapolis and that we were able to fight for the resources. So, yeah, you can clap for that. So I want to give you all some updates on what's happening in Washington, D.C. Over the past several weeks, Trump has stopped at nothing to dismantle our government. We as Americans are seeing an unprecedented and terrifying. Trump is expanding his authority through executive orders in ways that should shock and concern every American in this country. These actions have spurred 129 different lawsuits, most of which have resulted orders against Trump, and that is because they've been illegal executive orders. And Trump is showing a breathtaking willingness to defy judges' orders. His latest agenda has targeted more government agencies. He started trade wars with Mexico, the European Union, with Canada, with China. He's gutted tens of thousands of Americans from the federal workforce. He's emboldened Putin and Netanyahu and has ramped up his anti-immigration agenda. His actions to decimate the federal government have been severe. Today, Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. They have already gutted 50% of its staff. This will be catastrophic for kids all over this country, especially kids with disabilities and low-income kids. The Department of Education is responsible for 11% of the K-12 funding nationwide. This oversees grants, student loans, special education services. They support schools with large number of low-income students, and they enforce anti-discrimination laws. Minnesota receives over $2,000 per student from the federal government. Minneapolis public schools are already facing $83 billion in deficit this year. Erasing these necessary funds will make the shortfall even dire, and it will harm students with disabilities and those who come from low-income families. So let's be clear. Trump does not have the authority to do this. The Department of Education was created by Congress, and Congress has not given Trump the authority to destroy it. Similarly, he is going after the Department of Veteran Affairs by planning to cut 83,000 jobs. This will cause severe damage to VA healthcare infrastructure. 90% of the VA's workforce is dedicated to providing healthcare, and these cuts would worsen the already long waiting times and staffing shortages that makes it hard for our veterans to already access care. His plans to cut from vital veteran safety program nets. Over 400,000 veterans are uninsured, and nearly 10% of all veterans rely on Medicaid for their health care. Republicans, of course, are planning to make massive cuts to Medicaid. They are planning $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. Republicans are also planning to cut food stamp programs like SNAP, with 1.2 veterans relying on these benefits. Veterans are already overrepresented in our homeless population. Slashing housing programs would worsen food security, homelessness, and access to health care and medication for our veterans. I think most of us in this room agree that health care is a human right. That food and housing are a human right. The cuts that Republicans are proposing to Medicaid and SNAP and housing will literally kill people, plain and simple. But when Republicans have abandoned veterans, it's hard to imagine who they will be willing to protect. All of this is happening for one simple reason: to take these resources away so that they can put money in the pockets of the billionaires, the corporations, and the foreign corporations who have put them in power and who have bought a seat at the table. Last week, a federal judge ruled that Trump had illegally fired thousands of workers, and he has ordered them to immediately be rehired. Several judges ruled that Musk had unconstitutionally gutted U.S. aid. In February, another judge blocked Trump's funding freeze. This is true for case after case that has come before a judge appointed by every president. And how has Trump responded? By trying to impeach them. Musk has maxed out donations to Republican members of Congress that are driving these impeachment offers. I can't think of anything more unconstitutional, more harmful to our constitutional democracy than impeaching judges for upholding the goddamn Constitution. This is a Republican Party that has refused to impeach judges that have violated ethics. These are the same Republicans who have refused to impeach judges who have had people who have business in front of them, pay for their children's school, pay their mortgage, but they want to impeach judges that are upholding the Constitution. And they are supposed to be constitutional conservatives. I think not. So many of you can follow these lawsuits along by Googling Trump litigation tracker and make sure that you are seeing a complete list of these lawsuits. You have likely also seen that Trump has proceeded with tariffs directed at some of our most important allies. Many of his talking points center on the supposed unfairness of a trade plan that he himself negotiated under the US-Mexican-Canada agreement. You can't make this up. Trump's strange obsession with Canada seems to be driving part of this. Here in Minnesota, we have about $22 billion trade with Canada. And alone in the 5th District, it's about $600 million in goods and services trade with Canada every single year. That makes up about 6,500 jobs that are linked to that trade in Canada alone. Trump has openly suggested that his intent to hobble Canada's economy and force them into becoming part of the United States. It should go without saying that this is absurd and unacceptable way to treat an ally. But we also know in this room, we're very smart. We understand that tariffs are taxes. That they make everyday goods more expensive, they reduce purchasing power, and they disrupt our supply chains. Trump's tariffs will make everything more expensive. It means that it would make cereal more expensive because wheat would go up that we import from Canada. It would make housing more expensive because of lumber. It means our energy will become more expensive. It would become more expensive for us to buy vehicles. So no amount of him lying to the American people changes this truth. The EU and Canada's response makes it clear that the reckless trade policies have real consequences for working Americans. And we can't let that happen. And just like last week, the EPA took extraordinary steps to roll back environmental protections and climate policies. We know that this will lead to more deaths from asthma, heart attacks, and toxic exposure. It would eliminate climate policies that helped ensure U.S.'s leadership in the transition to a green economy, and it will lead to more devastating storms across the country and the world. And it would only delay a transition to renewable energy that will happen with or without our leadership. And last week, Congress, with the Republican majority, voted to give Trump and his co-president Elon Musk even more power by passing the continued resolution to fund the government. Now, let's be clear. A government shutdown would be horrible for the Americans. But I could not, in good conscience, support a bill that would reduce congressional oversight, send more money for deportations, cut staff at the Social Security Administration, and eliminate programs for veterans. And I am disgusted that several Senate Democrats gave up our first point of leverage. So join me in thanking our senators, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, who did the right thing and voted against this disastrous Republican CR. Over the weekend, Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act. This is the first time in our nation's history that this law has been used outside of war. We knew this was coming, which is why I introduced the Neighbors Not Enemies Act to repeal this outdated law, because I knew the risk it poses in the hands of someone like Donald Trump. This old law allows Trump to expel people from our country based on their nationality alone, not a crime they have committed, just by claiming that they have invaded the United States. We don't know the charges or evidence or even the identity against the 238 people that Trump has deported over the weekend. But we do know that the judge ordered Trump not to proceed, yet he went ahead anyway. Trump is openly disobeying judicial orders. He is ignoring the law that Congress has passed and creating a constitutional crisis by attacking our Constitution. We know that this is just the beginning of Trump's plans on immigration. This administration detained and for a while disappeared Mahmoud Khalil, a lawful permanent resident, for participating in pro-Palestinian protests. No criminal charges have been brought forth. He's been a U.S. resident with legal rights in this country. We've also seen U.S. citizens and valid U.S. visa holders detained for questionable reasons. He's rolled back the legal status of thousands of people, including Ukrainian refugees who arrived here, documented, and who have been working here legally. It has been clear to many of us that Trump was not going to focus only on those with criminal records. He's coming after any and every immigrant he can. And that's why it is so important that all of us know our legal rights. When you take stock of everything that Trump has done over the last 2 months, it is clear what's happening. Trump is a wannabe dictator. He will continue to ignore our Constitution, our laws, and the checks and balances that have been the bedrock of our country for 250 years. Republicans in Congress are unwilling to challenge Trump. They have abandoned their oaths to protect the Constitution, and our society will reckon with this chapter in our history for generations. Judges are constantly targeted by the mega universe, with some of my colleagues already trying to impeach judges for the rulings that they have made. It is only a matter of time before their verbal attacks result in physical violence against judges like we've seen before. Across the world, countries are seeing the United States fall. They are seeing Trump trying to annex our ally, Canada, berate Zelensky in the Oval Office while he cozies up to Putin. They are seeing us abandon foreign aid, which for a generation has widely been regarded as the most important diplomatic work the U.S. does. People are starving to death as we speak, while food rots in warehouses across this country for no reason other than Trump wants it. This betrayal is not something we will recover from quickly, but we will do whatever we can. This is what the collapse of our constitutional democracy looks like. This moment in our history requires all of us to speak out and to show up. For all of you to keep posting on social media, to keep going on protests, to keep calling your members of Congress. Make sure your family and friends who are represented by Republicans are calling their elected officials. Make sure they are registering to vote. Submit comments on the proposed rule changes. Find an organization that's doing work that you can work and volunteer with. Speak out in every way you can, especially if you or the organization you work for are personally impacted. We cannot normalize what is happening. And I repeat that. We cannot normalize what is happening. Because nothing about what we are seeing is normal. We cannot let our fear of retribution stop us from speaking out. We cannot comply with Trump's efforts to roll us back to segregation, to discrimination, or even worse. We need to fight for our country like our country depends on it. because we deserve a democracy that works for us, run by people who respect their oath of office, respect our Constitution, and respect the institutions that give it its strength. So before we do the Q&A, I want to remind you that our office serves as your liaison to every federal government. We can be a crucial line of advocacy for our constituents who are experiencing delays or irregularities or emergencies with federal agencies. Although it is, again, a difficult environment right now, it is our duty to you to make sure that we are doing everything that we can. In the last few weeks, we have worked to restore Social Security benefits, figure out issues with tax returns, expedite work permits, and reunite families. We can't solve every problem, but we will do everything that we can to try. And with that, we are excited to take some of your questions. So you can line up. I know we have about 30 minutes, so I will try to take as many questions. All right, we'll start on the right side.
Congresswoman Omar, I want to thank...
Wait for the... It will turn on. Hold on, give it a sec.
Test? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for representing me in D.C., for standing...
Thank you, it is an honor.
For standing at the USAID building, for your editorial about Medicaid. Millions of lives hang in the balance. I was in Nairobi 2004 when the PEPFAR program started at Nairobi Hospital. That program saved 25 million lives in 20 years. The AIDS pandemic is going to come back. We're going to have babies born HIV positive. There's going to be AIDS orphans all over Africa because of the USAID funding cut. The Medicaid cut. In Minnesota, we lost 11 mental health facilities in 1 year because of Medicaid being too low. Al Green is right. Al Green stood up. We need Jedis like you and Al Green in D.C. So please do everything you can to restore the Medicaid, to restore USAID, because there's a verse in the Bible that everyone needs to study. Trump's Bible needs to be open to 1 Timothy 8. The love of money is a root of all evil.
Amen. Thank you so much for your comment. I know that there wasn't a question in there, but I want to say I am grateful for your advocacy as well over the years. You know, PEPFAR was a bipartisan program. It was championed by my mentor and former colleague, Barbara Lee, and it was signed into law by President Bush. And so over the years, it's been supported both by Republicans and Democrats, equally and alike, because we all understood how important it was for us to fight to eradicate HIV, to make sure that we were taking care of people, and to save lives. That is essentially what our humanity calls on us to do. And we've been working really hard to try to make sure that even though they originally stopped the program, the restarting of it has been really slow. Many of these contractors are not getting to the people that need them. And this is the recklessness of the way in which they are governing, is that they look at government as if something that you can turn off and turn back on, right? they don't have the ability to lead with precision. They don't have the ability to lead with knowledge. They don't have the ability to lead with a steady hand. And that is what government requires. There are always opportunities for people to come together to say, this program is not working in the way that it needs to. Right? We balanced the budget in the State House when I was there. Right? Our mayor knows he balances the budget. Everybody knows that there is a way to work to make sure the budget is working the way that it's supposed to, and to find ways to make things more efficient. But coming in and turning things off because they sound funny to you, and then recognizing, no, this is a life-saving program, and being, oops, like that's not a way to run things. It might be a way that, Elon Musk runs his businesses. It makes sense why they have the deficiencies that they have. But we cannot survive as people while our government is run that way. So thank you.
Testing. Okay, good. Thank you, Congresswoman. So this is more of a message to National Democrats, maybe not to you specifically, but I have nowhere else to say it, so I'll say it here.
That's why we have this town hall. So say what you want to say.
Thank you. So the Democratic Party just seemed to not have a grasp on how they should counter Trump and President Elon Musk's actions and policies. Trump now has the highest approval ever, unfortunately. But the working people are suffering because of their devastating actions. We keep letting conservatives to control the narrative for many years on things like unions, social welfare, such as welfare queens, and even now, the podcast community, such as Joe Rogan. Remember, once upon a time, Joe Rogan was supposed to be progressive. Now it's completely dominated by conservatives and, anyway. So, yep, and full of misinformation. So, the best thing that the Democratic Party has done is standing up to their voters, not for their voters, to their voters. And heard Chuck Schumer gave a lecture on why we should keep the government open when the people want them to fight. Yeah. Meanwhile, thank you. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries' plan, according to what I saw, is to do nothing and hope that Trump will eventually become unpopular. All the Dems are focused on is to maintain the status quo. What are you going to do? And this is a question right now. What are you going to do to hold the Democratic Party accountable so they can start getting their act together to start serving Americans and take back the narrative? Thank you.
I mean, I think everything you said is valid. We have been obsessed with figuring out the perfect message and not doing the perfect thing on behalf of working people. And that has been problematic for us. You've got a president who basically campaigned on Haitians eating cats and dogs, who is our president right now, while Democrats were busy trying to figure out the perfect 3 sentences to put together to appeal to people. Clearly, that's not working. So I do think that there needs to be sort of come to Jesus moment for Democrats to understand that this is not, like, we are not divided by ideology. What we are divided by is generational, and in tapping into the reality of what is happening on the ground. We have people who want to bring a knife to a gunfight and are not rising up to the moment. And I think the urgency of the moment that we are feeling is what the American people understand. I have not had a town hall with this many people since I've been elected. My teletown hall Tuesday night had 17,000 people. That's insane. It's because the people are desperate for leadership. The people are desperate for courage. The people are desperate for bravery. And I think, I do believe it is not us telling Democrats what they should do in Washington. It's all of you showing them what they should be doing in Washington. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Omar, for everything you've said tonight. It's very inspiring, but it has raised a question for me that is deeply troubling. I want to preface it with a little quote. Trump was speaking to Turning Point Action in West Palm Beach, Florida, back in July of 2024. It's a conservative Christian group, and he said, "Christians, get out and vote, just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It will be fixed. It will be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians." He added, "I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good, you're not going to have to vote." Well, you can see where I'm going with this. Given his disregard for the law and his contempt of court orders and all of the systems we live by, is there some action that you and we and everybody need to take to ensure that we will actually be able to vote in 26 and 28 and that our votes will be counted?
Yeah, that's very concerning. No, I mean, again, you know, going back to the election, people heard that and still voted for him. That sounds as if, you know, people are not really understanding the danger that they were creating for our country by empowering someone like that. We also just heard 2 days ago Steve Bannon say that he's already endorsed Trump for 2028, and he is trying to find a way for him to do that. And so what the question is, we know this danger is looming over us. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do is to make sure first that we are registering to vote and that we are checking to see that we remain on that roster. The second thing that we do is to make sure that we are helping others that are in danger of being taken off rosters to remain on rosters. And then there's also legal funds out there that are fighting throughout the country against voter enfranchisement. He is not going to be able to do anything without our consent. And our consent happens by us thinking that there isn't anything we can do. So every little action that is out there that is possible for us, we must do. Now, those of us in Congress are going to fight to make sure that we are shedding light on dangerous things, that we are taking the lessons that we've learned on those that have given up, our first point of leverage, and making sure that doesn't happen again. And so this, again, is the fight of our time. And we're gonna be asking ourselves, what did we do? And so we must be able to answer that question. I did everything within my power.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Great, excellent.
Great. I'll let you know I'm a little nervous. My heart is kind of beating out of my chest. I wrote what I wanted to say down, but I also want to be able to look at you when I'm speaking, so
you can just say it from the heart.
Bear with me. 5 years ago, George Floyd was murdered here in our city. He was not the first, and he unfortunately will not be the last unarmed person to be murdered by the police in our country. During the uprisings in our city and across the country, we loudly declared that silence is complicity. Today, for me, it feels like inaction is complicity. Considering what appears to be a lack of action and absence of a clear and cohesive strategy amongst the Democrats over the last several weeks, my question is, well, I have a couple. Why should we place our faith in a party that appears idle, uninspired, and painfully weak? Yes, the Democratic Party. Yes, the Democratic Party needs to take a look at itself, but we have been hearing that for years. Being the lesser of two bad choices is not a strategy that builds trust amongst first-time voters or those who feel abandoned by the party's stagnation. My question for you tonight is, can you offer any concrete, actionable steps being taken right now to rebuild trust and community? Thank you.
I mean, so I will say I'm not the spokesperson for the Democratic Party. But I do think that it is a valid question. I think that I do believe that Democrats are taking a hard look at themselves and what they stand for. But we are only as strong as you are willing to make us, right? Because we exist as a party, and a party relies on its voters and its base. And so your ideas, your input, your pushback gives us the strength to find the direction in which we lead. And so I don't think people should feel disempowered. And I think we also, as voters, if I can just put on my voter hat, as you know, as somebody who lives here as well, I think we have to strategically think about what it means about the lesser of two evils. I don't think about the lesser of two evils. I think about what party can I organize within to get the best outcome for myself and my community, and what party is going to organize itself to harm me and my community. And so to me, it has never been the lesser of two evils. The Republican Party for me has always been the party that is willing to come after me and my family and my community and everything I hold dear, right? And I know that whether even if I don't agree with the Democratic Party 100%, that under the Democratic Party, I will not be fighting to save Medicaid, right? Under the Democratic Party, I would not be fighting to make sure that people have simple due process. And under the Democratic Party, I know that I would not be questioning whether a president is going to be turning himself into a dictatorship, disregarding the Constitution, and running for another term that he is not legally able to. So to me, it has never been about me. It has been about the bigger picture. And I think we oftentimes as Democrats find our little siloed groups, and we attack each other on why we can't be perfect. And that is problematic. The Republicans used to have that problem, and they figured out that once we have power, we can fight about who gets to win, right? And we haven't figured that out. In 2020, we did, after we went through the 4 years of pain under the Trump administration. We put our heads down and we elected Democrats into majorities. And we were able to push Democrats to implement policies that were helpful in addressing the climate crisis, policies that were helpful in making sure the students weren't continued shackled with student debt. We were helpful in making sure that we take Medicare debt off of credit reporting. All of those things are back on. And so to me, when we think about why doesn't the Democratic Party have a strategy, we as voters also have to have a strategy on what it means for us to have to win to govern so that we can have the wins in policies.
By coincidence, my question is related to the previous question here. I'd like to ask you about Christian nationalism, and I want to make two statements, and I'd just like to have you comment on those statements. Christian nationalism is a threat to democracy and to Christianity, and Christian nationalism is one of the main reasons Trump got elected. And I'd just like to talk to you about that, and maybe if you have some comments about the influence on Christian nationalism that you see at the Congress.
Yeah, I mean, I think religious supremacy in essence is a threat to not just our democracy here, but to democracies around the world. And it is a threat to people being able to live with freedoms and liberty and to think about what it means to live in an inclusive, welcoming societies. And I think it is important for us to not allow people to say that you are against people being Christian. Because we are for everybody practicing whatever it is they want to practice or not practice, right? That is what liberty, what liberty means and what the appeal for liberty is. That I get to practice my faith, you get to practice your faith, and you get to decide that you don't believe in any faith. That's the beauty. And so when you tie nationalism, right, like a national identity, to a religion, then you get exclusion, you get racism, you get fascist, you get extremist, and it becomes dangerous for everybody to live under it. And so we have to be able to understand what that means and how it could be dangerous for all of us.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, Representative Ilhan Omar, for having this town hall meeting and for your representation, voice, and leadership for human rights. I feel grateful to have you represent me.
Thank you.
I'm here because when I was growing up and learning about dark chapters in our country's history, like slavery, Jim Crow, apartheid, the internment of the Japanese Americans, I always told myself I would have spoken out and worked against those atrocities. Today, there are human rights abuses against immigrants, women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, federal workers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our felonious leader is talking about attacking and invading our friends and neighbors, Canada, Panama, Greenland, Gaza. Now is my time to speak out. The actions of this administration are unethical, immoral, vile. I'm trying to call at least one representative a day, write editorial letters in the Star Trib, rally at the state capitol, go to town hall meetings. If there's anything I can do, Representative, to support you and your ongoing work to protect the human rights of those targeted and scapegoated by this nefarious, cruel, authoritarian administration in power, please let me know.
Well, you're already being the model citizen. I think everything you listed is what I would have recommended. So thank you so much for everything that you were doing. We should all follow your lead.
Hello, Representative, and I just want to say thank you. You are shining and a shining example, doing 2 town halls in 1 week, and just want to shout that out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, I want to bring up Representative Al Green's efforts to impeach over the criminal plans to displace 2 million Palestinians who have survived this horrific genocide over the last 1.5 years. And I just wanted to bring one of their voices into the room. This is my friend. I shared a video of her son with you last February, and unfortunately they're still trapped in Rafah. And she said, "Oh God, when will we leave this spot of death to a safe country? With every second we feel that heaven is closer to us than anything else. From beneath the shells raining down on us, I write to you not knowing if I will ever write again. As the rockets and bombs lit up the sky a little while ago around 2 a.m., we told Amir and Kareem that these were fireworks for Amir's 8th birthday, which was 2 days ago. We smiled through the fear, trying to shield them from a reality no child should ever know. Amir ignores what his ears hear and eyes see and believed us, because children cling to hope even in the darkest of times. If anything happens to us, do not let silence swallow our story. Do not let us become mere numbers in the news. Tell our story, carry our voices. Let the world know that we were here, dreaming, loving, and fighting to survive until our last breath. Do not forget us. Remember us always. Your voice is an extension of our lives. And we've seen now, it looks like the Israeli military was dropping a photo of Trump and Netanyahu this week saying, the world doesn't care about you, you'll be erased from the map. And to me, that is incitement of genocide using the president, and he's been aligning himself with that. And so I guess I would ask how our efforts to support that and what can we do to help increase pressure to remove this criminal president who is attacking our Constitution and inciting a genocide.
I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing her words with us. Why aren't you following through? It is a process, and we know our justice system is slow moving. Then they have tools in their toolbox, right? They can sanction them. They can issue a fine for the number of days that they're not abiding by that, and then they can eventually hold them in contempt and jail them. And send the marshals to pick up the folks who are supposed to carry out the orders. That's the judges, the particular judge whose order is not being followed can do that. But that is again a process. The biggest worry is that as things move through the courts, we're 90 days away from the Supreme Court possibly hearing some of these cases. So what those rulings might actually look like, and how do we move forward after that? Again, because this is so unprecedented, it is a scary and confusing time for a lot of people. We've created litigation and response task force for the Democratic Caucus. There's about 40 of us that are members of that, and every day we're working through some of these scenarios to see what the possibilities are. We'll take a couple of more. I know, I want to stay too, but I think we are out of the building.
I said, please, I'm a public school teacher.
Oh, no, I'm taking your questions.
Okay, so I'm a public school educator in St. Paul, but I live in Minneapolis. Thank you. When I told my kids and showed them a picture of you on my computer this morning that I was coming here tonight, they asked me to please bring me with them because they thought you looked super cool and they wanted to learn about this. They're 8, 9, and 10-year-olds.
That's very sweet.
So the children, since the election, have a lot of feelings. They're hearing a lot. They know a lot. I've been asked, is it true that the president doesn't like brown people? Mm-hmm. Is it true that he's taking away SNAP? My mom says he hates women. What would you say to my 7, 8, and 9-year-olds to help them feel better with who they are and where they're going in life?
I would say yes, yes, and yes, but I love you, and I'm going to be here for you. And you are lucky to be in Minneapolis and Minnesota, where people are incredible neighbors. They are loving. And we have a state where you are going to be protected and your family is going to be protected.
Thank you. I will try to be very brief. I want to say that I'm a very proud Minnesotan.
Yeah, I will say we are 35 minutes over the time we're supposed to be in this room, so I want to stay and maybe get through the line that exists if possible. So if you can get to your question as fast as you can, so we don't have people marshaling us out of the building, that would be great. Huh? Oh, I don't care about that. I was actually surprised they came. I thought they thought that I wouldn't let you guys in or something, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll be brief. I'm a very proud Minnesotan. I'm currently living in Europe, just as an aside. My husband should be standing next to me tonight. He RSVP'd to come to this event, but at the last minute backed out because he was afraid to come here and speak. He immigrated here legally. He has a green card, but was afraid after what happened to the Columbia University student to come up here and speak. I guess I missed the part in the Constitution where the First Amendment right is only granted to white citizens like myself, and this should not be. Mass deportation of legal immigrants and immigrants living in fear does not put America first. I want to thank you for speaking out for USAID on the Hill. I work in sub-Saharan Africa in infectious disease, and I can guarantee everybody in this room, infectious diseases know no borders, and we need USAID to continue the fight against these important infectious diseases in Africa. Now, to my question, I was awarded a Fulbright scholarship last year under the Biden administration. I received an email 2 weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, saying that the funding to Fulbright is now cut. I am shocked because it's a bipartisan program that's been funded by Congress. Cutting it does not put America first. It hurts the best and brightest of America and American institutions. I would like to know what I can count on you for in Congress to ensure that the programs that have been funded by Congress, such as Fulbright and USAID, that have been now granted that they cannot be paused, how is the funding, how is Congress going to ensure that the funding is then released and then these programs are continued to be supported?
Yeah. What an interesting turn of events in America. We've become allergic to the best and the brightest, to research, to excellence. It's quite unfortunate. My staff, Team Ilhan, can you all raise your hands? Grab a card from them, and they'll look into ways that we might be able to directly help you.
Hi, Rep. Omar.
Yeah, also I want to shout out my staff while we're here. We have Connor McNutt, who's my chief. Jean, who's my district director. Ali, who's the deputy district director over here. Nikki, who manages our constituent work. Rujrani, who is on our comms team. Is Adrian? Who else is in the room? Okay. Yeah, I think Adrian and Talia and Fran might have registered you all, so full house. Go ahead.
Hi, Rep.
And
Omar.
Ladan, yes.
Hi. I just want to say thank you for being the most responsive representative I've ever had. And I've lived in a lot of different places. I'll just ask my questions. What are the Democrats doing to fight back against the reduction in force and the harassment of federal workers, especially for our VA? And our trans veterans are finding out at the same time as we are that their care is being stripped away. This will undoubtedly increase the rates of suicide and mental health crises among that community. Is there anything we can do to help them get the care they deserve if VA cannot come through?
Yeah. Oh, 2 questions at a time. Okay.
And I'll move right to the question. Whether we like it or not, President Trump tapped into some kind of emotions and fears and garnered votes from individuals who had previously voted for President Biden, President Obama, etc. You've talked a bit about the strategy, how we need to come together, but how are you going to reach those voters? Because if not, we're going to be asking you the same questions in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think to that, like I said, people are working on, figuring out. To me, I think it's simple. We have to show up for people. We have to give them a reason to vote for us. I think assuming a certain demographic just will vote for us is not a strategy. I don't think yelling at people and telling them that because they are a certain demographic that they should vote for us strategy. I think what we are seeing some Democrats do in showing up in parts where people didn't expect them to show up. I think that is the way in which we reacclimate ourselves to the folks that we want to vote for us and have traditionally voted for us. So obviously we've been racing we are in the minority, so our inquiries are not being responded to. We've been sending letters to understand folks who are fired, but the litigation is working in many of the agencies, whether it's the VA, whether it's the Department of Interior, whether it's USAID. Like, we've seen the courts say these firings are unjust and you need to bring everyone back. And I think that has happened not just because of the litigation, but because so many of us put a spotlight on who is being fired and the work that they were doing. We know that 90% of VA employees are literally providing healthcare service. In a clinic in Ohio, one of the persons that they got rid of was the only person who was answering the suicide hotline. Right? Like, that is so. So that's the other thing that we're doing. My State of the Union guest was a veteran who also was a federal employee who was fired, rehired, and then fired again. It just shows you the chaos in which the federal government is functioning at the moment. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And I know that the VA services that are going to go away once they cut that 83,000 jobs that I talked about earlier, and once they pass their budget reconciliation and gut resources for the VA, we know that the folks who live here are going to rely on Minnesota, and with them also taking away our state and county and city municipal dollars, it's going to be really hard. And so I am saddened that, like, people who we've asked to serve are the ones who we are first abandoning, and it feels really unfortunate. But we continue to advocate for them.
I want to say thank you for staying over time, and also thank you for defending the immigrant and trans community, because they're under attack right now. Relating to the last question of what Democrats can do to appeal more to American voters, I think right now we're seeing kind of the end game of unchecked wealth inequality in this country, where now our government is being bought and paid for by billionaires. Do you think it's realistic for Democrats to unite rather than on divisive social issues which are being funded by those same billionaires and that divisive rhetoric? Do you think it's possible for Democrats to instead unite among the working class and get working people's support, and also ending wealth inequality?
Yeah.
Thank you again for staying late. I do appreciate that. My question is kind of a very similar echo to what a lot of people are saying, which is, at this moment, we are looking to you for leadership. Specifically, what do you want us to do out in the streets? Do you want us to keep protesting? And we do hear all of that. Are there any groups that we could look to be a part of, or from your office? What are some good, concrete, actionable steps that you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, subscribe to our biweekly newsletter, so you know what we're up to, and what we're up against, so that you can help us push back and advocate. There is a group that is not fully organized, or like doesn't have leadership, and it's called 5 Calls. They give you the ability to make 5 calls every day to members to raise the alarm. And, organizations like Move On, Indivisible, those are the folks that are going to be instrumental in making sure that at least, this doesn't, their control and their ability to dismantle our government does not last for 4 years, but like we can be the check and the balance within 2 years. So that's an interesting question. I think obviously folks like myself talk about economic inequality and why it's important for us to make sure that we're not giving tax giveaways and that we are doing things like raising the minimum wage and having paid sick and safe time and trying to create safety net programs for people, because income inequality in this country continues to grow. And so many people are not able to have the American dream or access to the American dream the way other generations used to. And we hear that question of social issues. And I think the reason that has become the dominant narrative against Democrats is that we have allowed it. And I think it's time for us to reclaim our narrative of who we are and what we fight for. I think accepting that we are not working and caring when our actual policies are policies for the working people, accepting that that's not who we fight for. While Republicans say they fight for the little guy and they're gutting and making sure that farmers are failing in Minnesota and making sure that veterans are going to have more homelessness, making sure that they're taking away seniors' ability to access Medicaid and collapsing nursing homes, to allow those people to claim the narrative that they care about people and not corporations and the billionaire class. And for us to become the ones who are not caring for the people when every single day we wake up and we fight for the little guy is unfortunate. And that is a narrative issue, and we just need to reclaim our actual narrative. And I think as Minnesotan, as a member of the DFL party, it's time for us to actually live up to that and reclaim that narrative.
Hi, thank you for being so incredibly responsive. I assume that there have to be at least some Republicans in Congress who understand the damage Trump and Musk are doing to our country. The handful that are willing to actually do a town hall are getting tons of pushback. If it's true that there are at least a few that understand, from your perspective in Congress, why do you think they are willing to go along with such horrific, drastic measures?
Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. As you know, the Trump administration is very accommodating to billionaires, and they are settling a lot of their future on artificial intelligence. This morning, there was an article in The Atlantic saying that Meta had trained its large language artificial intelligence on the copyrighted works of authors. They are hoping that the Trump administration will help them rule that this is fair use and that they don't have to pay authors anything for training on their copyrighted works. This has been in the courts for a couple of years now. The courts are very slow, as you know. And I heard that Senator Schumer had been approached about this issue, and he said, well, we'll let it go through the courts. But I would like to put forward that perhaps it's time for Congress to act on this and specify that those large language models need to pay the authors of the copyrighted works that they train their artificial intelligence on.
Yeah, I agree. There are some pieces of legislation going in trying to figure out how to regulate AI. Would love to follow up about some possible proposals that we might be able to look at. I think to your question, I think that's a really important an important question. One, it's about elections. Many of them have been threatened with a primary, and they don't want to create that vulnerability for themselves. For a member of Congress to go against their party for whatever principled reason, it means that they expose themselves to being primaried. I would know a little thing or two about that. And so we know that right now, Thomas Massey, voted against the CR. And Trump tweeted he needs to be primaried. And they are actively working to recruit a primary challenge against him. So that might be one reason, is that they are blackmailing them with that primary challenge and making sure that everybody stays in line. The other, it might be their base. For some of them, their base might be okay until they feel the challenge. Today, I saw one of the New York Republicans say, removing Social Security offices is unconscionable and unacceptable. And I was like, oh, where was this energy when we told you this is what they were going to do if you did not stop Elon Musk from the beginning? And so we need 3 good, willing, courageous Republicans to stand with us against the harmful policies. But it might unfortunately take for harm to happen to their districts in order for them to eventually develop that backbone, because what every member of Congress knows is that regardless of how much money is spent against you in a primary, if the people who voted for you believe that you were principled, they might not agree with you all the time, but if they believe that you were principled in the position that they took, just like my voters have rewarded me, they will send you back to continue fighting for them. And so I do, and I've said that to a couple of my colleagues. I've had a primary every cycle, and it's painful, but it helps you to get to know really what the people you represent care about, and they get to really know you and where your values lie. So.
Just real quickly, Congresswoman, I know we're close to the end of the line, but the building is telling us we need to
Okay, so we'll take these 2 and then, okay. All right, we'll take 4 more. Sorry, the rest of you. Maybe we can the team get to them and give them a card so I can contact them some other way, please, because they've been standing in line. I'm sorry. But I think this is also our first time we've done a 2-hour town hall, so there's a first for everything. All right, go.
Eric, thank you so much for all that you do. And my question is, we've heard certainly Trump and Musk complain about the performance of federal employees, and they're being dismissed willy-nilly. And then we have a group of federally elected folks who are abdicating their power and responsibility. I'm expecting they still want their full compensation and benefits. So I'm wondering if there couldn't be some sort of, consequence for their lack of ability to do their jobs until September by cutting their benefits, cutting their compensation for Congress people to, show, you're doing part of your job. You gave away part of your job. You outsourced your job, so you're not getting as much as you were before. Is that something you'd be willing to propose?
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm actually a federal employee. I work for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as you know, it's one of the agencies that they want to completely dismantle. And my question is, thankfully the courts have kept us alive so far, but what are your and other Democrats' plans for trying to convince your Republican colleagues to vote against bills to dismantle as if and when they come to Congress?
Go ahead.
Oh, you already took two.
It's okay, go ahead.
I know, I'll do all of them.
All right. So I'm on the other side, and I'm the only one here that seems to have different views, but I'm married to a beautiful woman from West Africa. I have a beautiful little son. And
We are open to different views.
yeah, so I've been called a racist, Nazi, bigot hundreds of times in the past couple years. And I want to know if you think it's okay as a representative for all people in Minnesota, right, for you to say a couple weeks ago that you think half of us are stupid because we voted for Trump. That's the first thing. And then earlier you talked about the baby in Gaza, and that's horrible. And I hate seeing anybody hurt and dying. And I'm curious to know, because you call him an idiot repeatedly, what you think of him ending or bringing a ceasefire and saving tons of people over there.
Okay. Okay, whoa. Let the man speak. Finish.
Yeah.
Are you?
No, and
Go ahead.
then so those were two big ones, but yeah, I guess that's the biggest thing as a representative, to call the other side that doesn't agree with you stupid, and to agree and call us Nazi. Yeah.
Do you have one more to add?
That's it.
Okay, wonderful.
And lives in a super red state. She's very vocal, posts on Facebook. She's contacted her representatives who have been very rude to her. She goes to protests. She wants to know, what more can she do?
Okay.
First of all, I mean, no disrespect for the office or this crowd. My questions are, when are you going to be on CNN's Have I Got News for You? And who's funnier, you or Jasmine Crockett?
Oh, that was the question. That's funny. Jasmine is a dear friend of mine, and I don't know if I would challenge her to a comedy show, but grateful that she is in Congress and representing Texas. And we're trying to have her here. There's some folks who are like, you should bring Jasmine. I think that'd be fun. We've had over the years many members of the Congressional Black Caucus come and visit with people about different topics. So it'd be great to do that. The pay cut proposal. You know, it's an interesting idea. It's the kind of thing you think about when you get upset. Like, here's what we should do. But I don't know there's a feasibility for that, because there's laws that govern. And I know. What about laws, right? But I actually kind of like laws. When you come places where that's not a thing, you grow to appreciate checks and balances, and so. And unfortunately, but I will look into it if there's some clever way to do something. Yeah, there's, I will see that. The Protection Bureau, we are suing to make sure that they do not get their hands on an independent agency that actually brings people money back. And so I think that's the one where, like, everybody is up in arms because they actually do protect consumers, and we know that there's consumers that are impacted, that are really vulnerable, seniors, veterans, and so that's one that we've all been fighting for, and we'll continue to make sure that we do that. And so I'll answer the last question. This is fascinating because Republicans have always called us snowflakes. When we have criticized, when we have said, what's going on? And they seem to take everything personal. now that we say, which is kind of fascinating. So I will say this, as somebody whose in-laws vote for Trump, I do not think my in-laws are idiots. And I don't think my in-laws are stupid. But I do think that Brendan Gill, who thinks that a duly elected member of Congress can be deported, is stupid and an idiot. And anybody who signs his petition is stupid and idiot. So did you sign that? No, then I don't know why you should be up here. I mean, no, I did not say half of America. No. Okay, and maybe here's a thing to think about. If you believed what they tweeted I said, maybe it is time to consider you might be in that bracket of the people I was talking about. You all have a great night. Love you all. Thank you.